All right, welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Open Mic Show. Again, your truly host, Julio Henry. Tonight, I have a very smart, wonderful candidate running on the Virgin Islands Party ticket, Dr. Karl Dawson. Of course, many of you might know him from the church. Some of you might know him from the college. He's been at the college for a very long time, keeping that whole institution intact, keeping our kids, on the right track, helping to educate them. So today, he'll hopefully share his vision, his understanding, and basically tell us why he's in this race. Some of us probably think are saying, why is he leaving? Why even jump in the race? Why not stay at the college? But welcome, Dr. Dawson.
Thank you very much, Julio, and thanks for the opportunity to share with you and with the public.
Awesome. Well, for me, I'm glad to have you, that's for sure. Why are you in this race? Tell the people why you in this race.
I'm in this race to serve. My life, I've tried throughout my life to be about service. I think that's the way that I was raised. Not as a result, say, only of my parents, but I think as a generation of us, as we developed in our community, there was always the sense that as an individual, you could make an impact on a country this size, and that you had a responsibility. I was someone educated through the public course, certainly through primary and secondary schools in the Cane Garden Bay and the Rotang BVI High School, but also I received support directly or indirectly through the government in earning my bachelor's degree in hotel management, my master's in education, my doctorate in higher education from the University of Florida. So I really consider myself to have been blessed by the opportunities presented to me in this country, and I feel that of whom much has been given, much is required.
Awesome. So when people talk about grassroots, you are grassroots.
I consider myself to be grassroots, and I consider many of us in this country to be grassroots, because that's why I think that there must be a sense that a lot of us have come up from a similar base. Some of us will contribute in some areas, others in others, but we all are equal as human beings, equals as persons in this community. So no one needs to feel above the other because of maybe some degree or some position that they hold.
Oh, wonderful. Why even think about leaving the college? Some people say it's a cushy job. Why would you want to leave something that's somewhat stable to get out here and basically get in the race?
Well, as far as getting in the race, I consider this to also be a high calling for service, right? The road that I'm seeking to trot now is one that I believe will have an equal or even potentially greater impact on the wider community and the people in this territory. Certainly, I've been at the college for 23 years, and I'm proud of my service to the college. Being around the young persons as well as faculty members has really been inspiring to me, and the opportunities that we have to improve the institution, again, impact the lives of the students who have been coming through there, has been really inspirational, and I count it a privilege to have been there. I will say that the juncture at which I'm leaving, one of the major thrusts that we've been working on for the last few years has been accreditation. And we have reached to a point where now essentially we are waiting for the decision of the Accreditation Commission, having submitted a report in March. So in waiting for that, I think that a decision will be made, and it's a good juncture. I believe it will be, I'm hoping it will be a positive one, and will be a good point of departure to move the college in various directions. So it does not have to be me. I think we would have left it on a good foot, and it's a tremendous world of potential out there for the institution.
Well, definitely we'll talk a little bit more about that hopefully later on, accreditation. That leads me into another question. I was listening to another program, and a very influential person in the community said, he didn't really hear you. This was his recant. He didn't really hear your plan, and he was saying before he heard your plan that you didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. Do you have a plan? You're running with the Virgin Islands Party government, Virgin Islands Party. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth between who has real vision. You're a man of vision, I believe. You've been in the college, you said 23 years. What is your plan? How do you plan to contribute?
Well, I think that you mentioned in terms of running with the Virgin Islands Party, and I think that's a key point for me as far as contesting the selection. I mean, the options were there to run as an independent candidate or run with some of the other parties. But I believe that when I looked at the Virgin Islands Party and studied its history through the years, I think I saw at the core and essence of the party certain things. I saw there a desire to develop people. That there's no way we can talk about the development of the British Virgin Islands without talking about the development of the persons in the British Virgin Islands. I think that that was evident even in the roles they've played in bringing comprehensive secondary education to the territory, bringing the H.L. Stout Community College to the territory. So I was very, very much aligned with that, because I too, in my career and my service, is about developing persons, developing their potential. The other thing that I saw, in my view, as the essence of the Virgin Islands Party was the idea that the benefits and opportunities to the territory must be spread through as broad a base of persons as possible. So those two things there, because what it meant that we're saying we're not ending up with, yes, some people will have more than others, more money than others, but we're not trying to end up with a big hierarchical society, that there must be opportunities for a number of persons to succeed, a number of persons to get, as we say, as Ari said, a bit of the honey in the Virgin Islands rock.
So in other words, build a foundation and allow folks to just go out and explore, become entrepreneurs, become self-sufficient. Opportunities is what we're talking about, and I think that's one of the things that saved the BVI for more than 60, 70 years, having opportunities. So great. Let me ask you, let's real quick, 3 of your main concerns, 3 things that you think are pressing. It could be legislation, it could be law, it could be crime, tourism. What are the 3 things that you can think of right now that you say, you know what, if I'm part of a new government, I would like us to tackle these 3 things immediately?
I think one of the ongoing issues that's going to face this government, any government, will always be education. Because at the base of that, we're talking about whether or not persons can reach their potential. You're talking about the impact on crime in the society. You're talking about the impact on social deviance and a number of the issues that we face in terms of even people reaching their potential as far as productivity, whether working for someone else as an entrepreneur. A lot of this traces back to education. So that is one of my major focus, and certainly I believe that my background allows me to contribute to that conversation within the Virgin Islands Party. Now, one of the key things that I believe that could be a major lever in improving education is early childhood education. A stronger system for early childhood education is a major issue, and to say how exactly it will be tackled will need much thought, but I think it must be tackled. We must figure out a way as to how to have a standard curriculum. How do we ensure that the persons who are involved in early childhood education are trained to deliver it? And then the next step after that will be, how do we ensure that every child in the territory has access to this so that they can have the foundation needed for success in this territory? So that's one of the major things. But certainly also in the area of education, I'm passionate about the role of the leaders, the principals in the schools, the teachers in the schools, and their continuous development. I think is essential to the success of education. We must be a reflective practice in education where we can look back at the things that we're doing, seeking to measure the things that we're doing, and see where adjustments need to be made to improve the system. And in that, I think I will try to bring inclusiveness, that the stakeholders, the teachers must be involved in any policy development, in any new initiative. The parents must be also involved in new initiatives as well. So in pursuing education, it's not about, even though I may have degrees in education, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, somehow I have all the knowledge, I just need to tell the people what to do. We need to listen to the people, listen to the stakeholders, if they're going to really be on board with us in seeking to improve education in the territory.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned education, because that was actually my next line of question, but you have already laid out, I think, what would be essential to a more progressive, educated community. But let me ask you this. For me, education means a wider scope of understanding, training, opportunities. I would challenge you and anyone else in the next administration to maybe start looking at a lot of hands-on when it comes to education. You know, in Singapore, they have a very unique way of assessing. Their assessment go from time the child starts school. and they somehow can figure out, evaluate a child and say, this one will be more, he has a love for touching things, feeling it. It doesn't mean that he's just going to be a repairman. It means he could be an engineer. And they have programs that tailor and push those kids. So when you speak about early childhood, I think that's essential, because that's what's missing right now, you know, having that opportunity. Would you do anything other than that?
I totally agree with what you're saying. And even as far as when we talk about early childhood education, we're also saying, look, that right now some of the experiences that our children get are not necessarily appropriate for their age. That at times when they need to be feeling and exploring, understanding shapes, understanding how things relate to each other, which would be the foundation for a greater love for learning, we need to make sure that all students are experiencing that. I think another aspect that we need to look as far as curriculum reform is concerned is that we need a stronger emphasis on what they call the STEM areas: science, technology, engineering, and math. And we're talking about at the appropriate level for the age of the children. I drew a reference, for instance, to, as we were growing up, a simple thing as building a roller. You know, you'd have your roller there, and you're pushing your roller and turning. All of this has base in physics, has base in maths, and has base in understanding how things work. And we're saying that our curriculum probably needs to move a little bit more to that. And I think what it will result in, it will result in individuals at higher levels in the system having a more greater affinity for technical subjects, whether, as you said, it's to be technicians, whether it is to be engineers, whether it is to be scientists in various areas. But we need to ensure that a curriculum also is broad enough to have that kind of a base of a foundation, so that persons have the potential to explore where their inclinations are.
That's right, that's right. All right, we shift gear just a minute in a different way. One of your, well, several of your running mates alluded to ethics legislation, reform in the House of Assembly. What's your take on that? If you were elected, your government gets in. You know, sometimes we say things on the campaign trail, but then when we get inside the house, when we get behind closed doors, if you're a member of the ministry, you have a ministry, sometimes now that's when the real fight come out, because you campaign so hard for reform, but then others might be saying, we don't want to put pressure on ourselves, but this is what's needed. I have to do it to myself to set the example. Would you push for reform? Would you push for ethics, more accountability in cabinet and in the House of Assembly?
Certainly, Julio, I was one of the persons calling for ethics legislation there on the campaign trail as well, because I believe that one of the things that we are bothered by in this community is there is a level of skepticism about political leaders. And I would say it's not just here in this community, it's around the world. And I think that because of that, it means that we must try to hold ourselves to even higher standards. The question, as you've said, about transparency and even conflict of interest is one of the things that is also in much discussion on the campaign trail. And I would suggest that either party, either government, whoever forms the government, needs to try to raise this to a higher level. That there may be interests that individuals may have, but let's bring it and put it on the table so that persons know, well, when you're arguing for this, that there is a particular interest that you have, which you have already declared. Yeah. Because I think it's important that people feel confident that when their leaders sit at the table, that the country is the preeminent thought in their mind. The best interest of the country, the best interest for a broad cross-section of people in the country is what's on their mind. Now, as far as accountability and transparency is concerned, I think that the Constitution and the rules governing the House of Assembly have built certain things in there. But I think that I'm not confident that those things have always been adhered to most recently. Take a question like questions in the House. The reasons for questions in the House is about accountability, about transparency. And I think that there must be a greater sense by whoever is in government that when a member on the opposition asks a question in the House, don't look at it as just Honorable Joe Smith asking a question. That's Joe Smith, who was elected by a number of persons in this territory to sit in the House of Assembly, and you must not just answer to him, you're answering to the people. So I think it's very important for us to restore that to the House of Assembly, and even simply the way we conduct ourselves in the House. We have our children and our young people looking at us, looking up to us, and there must be the sense that yes, we can conduct the business of the people, yes, we can be passionate about the people, but we can, about the business, but we can still be respectful in the way that we do it.
Definitely. One of the things that get lost with people running for office, and I can attest to this, is that sometimes you get into office, and you, for example, you might be running at large, and depends on how you get in, you might get a portfolio, you might become a minister for whatever, and the wider representation sometimes get lost because the portfolio is so big. You know, you're Minister of Education and Sports and Recreation, but then you have Virgin Gorda and other areas where need attention under the ministry, but still as a territorial representation. That's lost. How would you, quickly, how would you combat something like that? Let's just say you get in. You become the Minister of Natural Resources and Labor. You're traveling around the world, but yet business here locally is not being done.
Yeah. I think it's something that we are still wrestling with. We have it for 20 years now, introduced in 1995, and I think we're still wrestling with that balance. As far as I'm concerned, I really take seriously the idea of territorial representation. I understand the challenges that you've posed, as to say the time available to you if you're a minister, have a ministerial portfolio, but you still have to find some way to ensure territorial representation. I believe because the district representatives have districts, there are some particular things within districts which you can say that they will lead on. I think as a territorial representative, there will be things that across the territory that I will still have to look at. But I think that territorial representatives perhaps ought to even focus in on certain bigger issues. If we're talking about healthcare, if we're talking about tourism, various developments, long and sustainable things, we're saying that perhaps territorial representatives also ought to focus their attention at that. One thing that I've been saying to persons out on the trail, which I plan to intend to keep at, is to say that as a territorial representative, I will commit to spending time, you know, whether it's long weekends or whatever, spending time on the various islands. It may be that do two of them a quarter in order to be sure there's a certain amount of circulation for the year. But I'm comfortable with it because as a British Virgin Islander, I have vacation on Jasper Dyke, I have vacation on Virgin Gorda, I have vacation on Antigua, I have vacation in Brewers Bay, and I have vacation at Lambert as well. So I do like to take weekends and go to these various places. So it will be, at a minimum, try to ensure that there's time to contact the people. So I look forward to bring in what I consider to be true at-large representation. Because as you go out there, you know, the people of Antigua, when I went there, said, look, Dawson, I'm glad to see you, but I know when I'm going to see you again, 4 years from now. And I would like to know that they would have a different song to sing after, if I'm successful, after one term in office, they would say, at least we'll see Dawson.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Let me shift gears again one more time. We have probably about 10 more minutes left in the show, in the program. You're a man of the cloth. You know, sometimes people say, you hear the saying, religion and state shouldn't mix. I heard several comments about, you know, who's right, who has a plan, who's right for the job. I've heard even a member of the public recently was giving you no credit, but giving others who are junior ministers in other churches credit and saying, well, he has a plan, you didn't have a plan, you came forward and you presented a plan, and now you're here doing that again. Is there any conflict? Would there be any conflict? Would you still stay with the church, be a man of the cloth still, but still representing the true identity of the people of the Virgin Islands?
Okay, absolutely, Sam, that being a Christian, first of all, is something that permeates your life. That's not to say that you would not fall or make any errors, but it's something that permeates your life. So I can't talk about going to do elected office and leaving my Christianity behind. It's already a part of who I am, and I also see it as a part of service to God by serving people. And that will certainly be a part of my life. I'm currently a lay preacher in the Methodist Church, and I will say that one of the things that I was considerate about was whether, in fact, as a lay preacher and having the privilege of the pulpit, whether, in fact, it might be a stumbling block for those who may have different political views than myself. I was looking at that out of an abundance of caution, because I would not want to be a stumbling block to any Christian in their walk with Christ. I will say that I sought the counsel of my pastor, senior pastors, and other Christians in the community, and they say, Karl, look, there are people who are not going to come anyway, there are people who want to come. So look, you be true to your calling, you be faithful to that calling, and you do your best for Christ. You know, as long as you know your heart is pure, continue to be true to that calling. So I really do believe that persons are looking from the community and saying, look, we want people who have aligned themselves with certain values. Those values that are oftentimes associated with Christianity, because we're saying we want people to be honest, we want people to be truthful, we want people to be transparent, we want people to be willing to serve others. And those are the things that I strive in my life to be. I think I can say that for the time that I've been at the college, I've tried to do that, and I feel confident as I've left there that every decision that I have taken has been with the best interest of that institution in mind. And I'm trusting God that He will keep me as I move, if successful, move into this other office, that He will also allow me to be kept to, so that I can be true and my integrity can be intact as far as serving the people is concerned.
Definitely. From the clot, from the church to crime.
Yes.
We got about 7 minutes left. And I got another question after that about tourism, just so you can start putting it in your mind.
Okay.
Crime is a major concern. We all know they go hand in hand. Crime, high crime, low tourism. Or right now we're experiencing a low season. Let's talk about crime first. Sex crime is a big problem. Molestation and so forth is a big, huge problem now in the BVI. Domestic issues with domestic partners is a big issue. Gun crime, violence is becoming an issue, and drug smuggling is becoming an issue. In a nutshell,
Okay.
would you tackle it? I mean, we have some new legislation, and some of those will be good to help deter some of the crime. But what different measure would you bring, if any, to the table?
I think it's an issue that has to be tackled from a many-pronged approach. Some of them are going to be short-term and immediate. Some of them would be long-term. Long-term, I mentioned earlier about education and the impact of sound education on reduction of crime, reduction of social deviance, and so on. So we must always be seeking to improve the education system in order to reduce a number of the issues that you just raised. But I think that there are also things that we're going to have to do, take a stand as a community and through the legislature, as far as some of the legislation, the laws concerning these things, to send clear messages to the community. I think that we also have to ensure that there's strong support, even in tough financial times. You know, I live in the western area, and in the western area, police station down there has been closed for quite some time. You know, and I think that the presence of the community, the police, and even the vision that the persons in charge of the police have now, is not about saying solving crimes after they have been committed, but it's about being able to prevent crimes. And through community policing, through better interactions with the businesses and the individuals in the community. So it means then that the police have to be in the community. It cannot be that you call a police is patrolling from Road Town or King Gadenby in the Western example. So I would certainly be one that is supportive of police presence, because I believe that the better relations are, the greater chance of reducing crime, right? So I do believe that it's not something that can be put on the back burner, because, as you have said, there's a great relationship between whether persons feel safe in a particular destination as to whether or not they wish to come and return to that destination. I think that there's some issues here but I still think that we have an opportunity. People still feel relatively safe here, and we must maintain that and use that as a competitive advantage in this very competitive tourism market in which we are operating.
Good, good, awesome. Let's touch on that. Our last question, last focus. Tourism, yes, and you just sum it up pretty much. Good tourism destination, a safe tourism destination, has always been the lifeline of the BVI. The fact that tourists come here and are able to freely, without any fear, move around our territory, that has helped economically different areas, because as they go, they spend money, they get more relaxed, they take taxis because they don't want to drive their rental car anymore, but they still have a rental car for a week. They stay in some of these remote areas where villas are located. There's no security. Some of those areas don't have any lights. So all of that plays into the whole tourism boom. But you know, we now have a new cruise ship development. I heard some comments recently, not to put you under the bus or anything, so you don't have to touch this, and I won't get too deep into that. But tourism is our bread and butter. Financial services is our bread and butter. No problem. We're not trying to compete them against one another. But more people seem to be benefiting from tourism, directly and indirectly. What would you bring new? What innovation would you bring? What perspective would you bring to the tourism market to make it more vibrant, so we could see a little bit more activity on the ground, especially during this time and in the summertime?
I think that one of the things that we have to do with tourism is make sure to align the entire visitor experience, right? From the time that they land at the particular ports, from their experiences in rental cars, in villas, and the way that the tourism structure has developed here. I like it, and I think it's fundamental, again, to the Virgin Islands Party vision, because there are a lot of small operators. There's a number of small, I think there could be more, but there's a lot of small business operators. It's not like when you go to the Condado and you see a bunch of high-rise hotels, or down in Aruba, a bunch of high-rise hotels. We're talking about a product here that a lot of persons are able to participate in as owners here in the Virgin Islands. Now, we now have to say, how do we ensure that the experience that each of these owners provide is consistent with what we are marketing the territory to be, how we are marketing it, and the experience that we expect the visitors to have. And it means that we must be involved. Let me just draw one example from the rental car agencies. I would like to know that our rental car agencies, from the time we work with them, that they must be advocating for safe roads. They must be advocating that where there's a speed bump, there must be a sign, whatever, 20 or 30 meters ahead. Because, look, I have a customer that's going to be on the road. He's just here for a week, and he doesn't know where all these things are. So they must be the ones also working with us to say, look, make sure that the things are in place. This is what we're hearing from our customers, and put these things in place to enhance their experience. And that's a key piece for me, Sam, that as far as running government is concerned, it's a lot about information. How are we going to set structure or information gathering systems to ensure that the feedback we need from our customers, whether it is in tourism, whether it is in financial services, whether it is with respect to government services, what are our systems for feedback to give us the information? Because this thing is a business. You know, it's a country, there's social services, but there are a lot of business-like aspects to it. And a key piece of business aspect is information for decision making. So that's one area that I will try to enhance. How do we get the information that we need in order to better run these countries? I'll draw one quick example. Down at the various ports of entries, we have our service ambassadors. I think that's a good idea. They're there, they help you fill out your, make sure your thing is filled out when you're coming in. But these guys should have an iPad. Right? They should have an iPad for the persons leaving the territory, so that they can quickly do a survey of those persons, fed into a central information database, so we can know before they leave, while it is fresh in their mind, what they liked about the territory, what their concerns were, what were their difficulties. Yes, we can email them after they've gone, but if we catch them while they're right in the lounge waiting to depart, then that's a wealth of information that can help to contribute to the territory. And that's the basis. When I think of the economic model for the Virgin Islands, I'm saying it's an economic model that has to try to involve as many persons as possible, as many small businesses as possible. It has to be an economic model where we can agree on the standards, because the performance of one person in one sector is going to impact the performance, the views of the entire sector. It has to be a situation where the government supports training and development. One of the things that I propose is a customer service institute that will help to ensure that there's a level one, help with identifying and measuring customer service, with training, and determine what intervention is needed in this area, setting the quality standards so we can be assured that the standards are consistent across the board as we seek to develop a robust and sustainable economy.
Good, good. Well, I think we right at the end, but let me just plug my 2 cents in, and I think you're right on track. Small business, local participation, entrepreneurship is a key issue for me. I would love to see a government that understands that. In addition to all the higher education, I'm all for higher education, and I agree with you. But one of the things that has been missing, and this is not you don't have to comment on this. One of the things has been missing is real seed money, real government help to help move a prospective business owner from the long delay of trying to get a business off the ground and actually having the tools and equipment and what's needed to move that business so he now becomes an independent operator and not a dependent operator. So I think it's great. He has some brilliant ideas. I hope the people watching fully understand what you say. I hope before they watch this show, they should set their tape recorder so they can play the information back for themselves whenever. And I believe we might be on stream online as well, so they will be able to go in and review and listen to what you said. Is there any closing argument? If you were in a courtroom right now, 1 minute, give us your closing argument. Why should the people of the territory vote for you?
I think that the territory at this particular juncture needs to know that they have experienced and capable leaders. They need to know, we need to know that we have persons who are going to put the country first in every instance. They need to know that they have leaders at the helm who can be trusted. They need to know that they have leaders at the helm who will listen, and not just simply sit up there and make decisions on their behalf, value the input of the broad range. And I think that they also need to know that the persons who are at the helm are trying to ensure policies that benefit as broad a base of the population as possible. And that's what I will be striving for. I believe that's what the Virgin Islands Party will be striving for, and that's why I'm proud to be with that group. And I'm also proud to be with that group with the leadership of someone who I consider to be a defender of the territory, Honorable Julian Fraser. As far as information, as you were sharing, Sam, and even before that, I will again try to ensure true territorial representation, even ensuring video links between the islands to ensure greater participation on discussions of various issues, video conference links. But as far as information, I do have a Facebook page, Dr. Karl Dawson VIP 2015 is my Facebook page. And I'm also launching this weekend a web page, which is karldawsonvi.com, karldawsonvi.com, Dr. Karl Dawson VIP 2015 as Facebook. So I'll be posting, it's a short election, you know it was a little bit of a short thing, so we're trying to still get information out there so that persons can be informed as they seek to make a choice. Let's not argue, you know. People are going to choose one or the other. At the end of the day, it's not about who's on Team VIP, Team NDP, Team PEP, or whatever the team is. It's about Team BVI. And that's what I'm signed up for, Team BVI. And I'm putting myself out there and trusting God to help me to serve the people of this territory.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your views. Again, I hope the viewing audience is listening attentively, and we'll take everything. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Open Mic. Tune in again. We'll have more interviews coming, and we hope that you enjoy them. In the future, we'll have more shows coming. And if you want to be a part of the show, please feel free to contact me. we can always sit down like this and have a reasonable, fair discussion. Like Fox say, fair and balanced. With that said, have a wonderful day.